Do you think Newcastle could actually change their mind at any point in this season and they go, okay, 100 million, no one is willing to pay, let's negotiate?
No, I don't think they're going to change their mind. I think he's a player that they really, really want to keep.
Right, lads, welcome back to the Cossy Arsenal podcast. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to brand new video. This is the latest Arsenal news and transfer news as well. We are back with Glen for the Cossy and Glen podcast. We're going to be talking about the midfield situation at Arsenal. Looks like Arsenal are serious about getting in a midfielder, although we might not be able to get the 180 million pound signing. So Arsenal are looking at some cheaper options. Now, Yusuf Fofana at Monaco is one player Arsenal have held conversations with, and Monaco are very, very open to selling. We'll also talk about Amadou Onana at Everton, a player we wanted in January, and reports are saying Arsenal are still following the situation of Amadou Onana, as Everton will be forced to sell in order to clear their financial distress. Now, Glen, welcome back to the show, bro. It's been quite a day. Dortmund losing, obviously, but in terms of the Arsenal transfer world, it's opening up a little bit. So, do you think another big window, another exciting window for you?
I think it's going to be even more exciting than the other ones. I mean, it's very tough to beat the Declan Rice one. It was very exciting to get in Declan Rice. But I think in terms of being busy, I think this is going to be busy. The other transfers, you aren't really getting rid of players. But this transfer, I feel like we're going to see up to 7, 8 departures and maybe 4 or 5 incomings, and probably a change in every single position: defense, goalkeeping, midfield, and forward positions. So super excited.
Yeah, definitely big changes coming in at Arsenal. And among the big changes is a new winger. Now, among the dream signings for Glen this summer was a player called Johan Bakayoko. I am happy to tell you and everyone on this podcast that Johan Bakayoko is one of the wingers that Arsenal are following. That will be a very big plus for Glen if we should actually sign him this summer. We'll talk about the winger situation and why Johan Bakayoko is being followed by Arsenal as well. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We have done a massive update about Wesley Fofana, the defense, and also Benjamin Sesko signing before the Euros on Glen's channel. That's already out on his channel, Glen Kitely Everything Arsenal. So make sure you watch it to understand why Arsenal want to get that deal done before the Euros for Benjamin Sesko. Glen, let's get into it. The midfield situation is changing, and I think that is because of the news that Thomas Partey wants to stay, but also because Newcastle are not willing to negotiate with anyone when it comes to Bruno Guimaraes. Now, Arsenal are looking at some cheaper options,
especially them not knowing when how the Tonali situation will go, and Miley being young, and a lot of changes in Newcastle as well, and them trying to get back to European football. I'm sure it was a big disappointment for them to now get to the Conference League and dropping off after Man United won that. So I don't think they're going to change their mind. I think you're going to go over 100 million to convince them, and that goes to whichever team. Even if he forces a move out, it's just going to be a complicated situation, and there's no chance that kind of a deal can happen quick. That one, if it's going to happen, it's going to be on the last day of the August, like on deadline day, that when after it's pushed for the move and all that. But right now, yes, FFP, they have to care about that, but I think they would prefer selling other players and not really Bruno Guimaraes. So I don't think they're going to change their mind at all. It's going to be 100 million plus, probably not even just 100.
Yeah, sure. So many people have been asking me for an update on Bruno Guimaraes. The one update I can give you at the moment is Newcastle have told the representatives of the player that they're not willing to negotiate down the price with any club at the moment. They want to keep him. They want to keep the player, and that is not going to change. So the only way any club can actually sign Guimaraes this summer is by triggering the release clause, 100 million, which is payable in 3 installments. So Arsenal could actually pay 33.33 million across 3 periods of time, and then you get Bruno Guimaraes. Other than that, there is nothing I can give you on Guimaraes. The player would love to join Arsenal. Arsenal are big admirers, but at the moment there is nothing going on. Here's a release clause that I've talked about, and it expires in June on the 26th. I think it will be in the Copa America by that time. So it will be a very, very difficult deal for us to pull off before the Copa America tournament. Glen, do you think that him going to Copa America and this being a very big deal, you just can't rush it within 1 week, 10 days? Do you think that basically that is it? It's over for Arsenal and Guimaraes?
That plus the fact that now it's looking like their priority is really striker and all that. Now, I don't think it will be completely dead. Something can still happen afterwards, especially if we just sign one player and then for the next couple of weeks we don't really bring anyone else
Yeah.
up until like the end of June. Then it might be because you're waiting for a certain player. So I think there's a lot that is making the deal complicated. The fact that Newcastle don't want to sell, the fact that it's 100 million plus, the fact that maybe Bruno Guimaraes himself wants to stay at Newcastle, he loves the Newcastle fans love him. The fact that he's going to go and play at the Copa America for Brazil, and the fact that it's another Premier League team, so the value for him to be sold to another Premier League team is just going to be higher, and also the fact that
Sure,
we're
sure.
also working on a we're not working like with the 230 million, for example, we had to spend last summer transfer window, so budget constrictions and all that. So you're working, it's a lot of things that's going that make that deal hard. But you never know. You might end up raising that money. You might end up only getting a cheaper strike, and then the rest of the money they want to spend on a midfielder. As I said a couple of days ago, my priority is midfield. That depends on the party situation and everything. But yeah, I think it's a very complicated deal. I think the fact that he's also going to the Copa America and it's not going to take a week or two, as you've said, it just makes it even more complicated. That's a player that I feel like is not going to leave Newcastle.
Yeah, complicated deal, complicated situation. I mean, we might see a PSG swoop in to maybe sweep him over his feet. At the moment, looks like Newcastle are still having the big advantage when it comes to Bruno Guimaraes. Now, personally, I think Arsenal are still looking for a lever raiser in this team, and we're also still looking for depth and numbers, at the side. So we might go, a little bit. Um, Lower in terms of price. We've talked about Partey staying and whether that could actually impact the midfield situation in terms of incomings. I think you were absolutely spot on when you said if he stays, Arsenal don't go with a high budget midfielder. They might go with someone who's a little bit, cheaper, 25 million, 35 million, or even around 45 million there. So we have two very concrete options here. Amadou Onana and Yusuf Fofana. So let's start off with Yusuf Fofana because he's the player that has been linked today, and reports are saying that he's going to be leaving Monaco. Concrete, that's according to Fabrizio Romano, and Arsenal have held talks with the entourage of the player. Monaco will be bracing themselves for offers this summer as they know the player is going to be leaving. Now, 25 million for Yusuf Fofana, who, by the way, predominantly plays as a central midfielder, not as a defensive midfielder, but of course his build and his physicality and his energy could actually be transformed into that DM role at Arsenal. Do you think it's a smart decision for Arsenal to simply go for someone 25 million cheaper because Partey is staying, or it would be better for us to rest our case until Partey leaves and then we go and do a mega signing?
Oh no, you cannot not buy a midfielder this transfer window. As I
Yeah,
say, that is my priority because
important.
disaster could strike. It could play the first game of the season against whoever in Ipswich, and then Partey goes down with an injury, and then you're in trouble. And as we know, again, somehow, because you're still going to mention it again, 180 pages. We always find a way to mention it.
Yeah,
We're not just going to this guy is injured. Okay, let's go and buy a player tomorrow. At
yeah,
they don't do that. They're going to let's buy him in January. So we have to get a midfield either way. A midfielder has to join us on this transfer window. Now, as you said, I was supporting that part of the transfer window where if Partey leaves, that's in a scenario where Partey leaves, then we'd get an expensive midfielder like a Bruno Guimaraes, those big names to replace him. That is if Partey leaves. But as Cossy said, I did say if Partey stays, then you can afford to get a cheaper midfielder. Or I also used a younger midfielder. If like someone like a Joao Neves is cheaper, you can get him because you have someone else there, and then he's going to be needed for some games here and there. Now it's looking like I don't think Arsenal want to push out Partey, so I would not be surprised again if he stayed, but I'd not be surprised if he ended up leaving and then we change it up because I think next year there's another AFCON as well. So I don't know how many games are going to be available. That midfield position is very, very crucial. That is the spine of your team. That for me is the most important position. You have to be good at it. There's games I've watched this season that I'm like, Rice has been man of the match like more than 10 times this season, playing in a couple in that midfield position and some in the number 8 position. Partey comes in out of like the 4 or 5 games he played at the end of the season. at least three of them he completely stood out. And maybe I think there's one where it wasn't great, but again, I think the Everton one. I think just the Everton one. I think they weren't great with Declan Rice, if I'm not wrong, the last game of the season. But
Yeah.
most of them, they were great, and you can see his quality. So if you take out Partey, you're in trouble. Not in trouble because Jorginho is not a good player, or Declan Rice is not a good player, because now, as Cossy said, depth as well. You're not going to have depth. And last season, yes, maybe he missed chances, maybe needed a striker, yes, maybe a couple of defenders made a mistake, maybe the Ryan Ramsdale situation cost things, but the midfield, we didn't really have anyone to bring on. We had to play Jorginho every single day, and I kept on thinking, maybe if you had Jorginho as an option as well from the bench, again, bringing that quality from the bench, you'd have been able to control some of these games more. We'd have been able to, that experience from the bench. Even if he started, maybe if he gets tired, we'd have been able to bring on someone else. But the moment we needed Jorginho to go off, you might have to bring in Rice to the number 6 position, and then all of a sudden Havertz is back in midfield, and it complicated everything. I think if Partey was there throughout the season, we might never have seen Havertz in the number 8 position that much. I think we'd have seen Partey and then Rice, and then when Partey's not there, Jorginho. But the fact that he felt that also, okay, Jorginho is still playing so many games and Partey's not available, and on top of that, Elneny not available, it was a problem. So that midfield, you have to sort it out either way, and you're going to talk about the players.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's about maintaining the quality you have in the areas that are absolutely quality, and not making sure that you don't have any decline in terms of quality, and then upgrading where you can. It wouldn't make any sense for us to upgrade the striking line and then the midfield declines or the defense declines. So I agree with you there. So we've gone with 3 cheaper options, and I think both all of them are actually very, very big talents. Let's start off with Onana, because for me with Onana, and I would have loved to talk about Yusuf Fofana first, but Ahmad Onana has played in the Premier League, and he's been a very, very favorite player when it comes to this Arsenal fan base. They love him, they understand him, and they understand his game. Now, again, for me, Onana is more of a central midfielder as opposed to a defensive midfielder. I think, and this is not any, this shouldn't actually come off negatively, but I think because he's kind of, I would say African, and his physique, people think he's actually good in in defensive midfield, right? When you hear that he's Belgian and he's a central midfielder, you're like, really? When I look at him, when you see Everton lineup, you might think he is the defensive midfielder, he is the DM, but he actually is not the DM. But he could be available for around 50 million or even less, actually. Everton would sell because of their financial position. Would you look at him as the best fit to come in at Arsenal this summer, or do you think we would sign him but eventually sign a defensive midfielder later on?
Now, as I said, if Partey left and then you were bringing in Onana as a replacement, I would not have been happy with that. I'd have been like, some qualities, yes, but most of the qualities that Partey has there or Jorginho has there, I don't think he brings up much in terms of how Arsenal play. If you're just a team like an Everton who want, protect the box and keep clean sheets. Yes, we want to keep clean sheets, but in terms of do more defending than more attacking, then Everton would want those big players in midfield. And don't even have to have that good of a technical ability. He does have it, but you don't have to be like on the levels of Jorginho, those kind of players like Partey. Now, since Partey could end up staying, now I look at Onana differently. I'm like, okay, he can come and play the central position. He can also come and play the defensive midfield position. When Partey is missing, he can help us there for a couple of games, not for a run of 20, 30 games to depend on him against Aston Villa, Liverpool, Bayern, Real Madrid in a row. No, not that. But in terms of, for him debutizing sometimes and sometimes starting, the fact that he's played in the Premier League has helped. And I do agree with in terms of central midfield because his ball carrying ability is really good. There's one particular instance that always comes to mind when we played them at Goodison Park a couple of years ago and they beat us 1-0. Sean Dyche's first game. That game, there's a couple of times he just flew past Xhaka and flew past Odegaard. And I was just like, this guy is crazy. You can't take the ball off him. Power, pace, not even pace, long legs, that kind of running, and you can't take the ball away from him. So in terms of that, he can really help you. And that's why I'm like, maybe he's more of a central midfielder, as you said. But as a defensive midfielder, if you just ask him, listen, just energy, just intercept the ball, keep away the number 10 from the game, just bully him and stuff. I don't think I don't even think he's anywhere near like his teammate Idrissa Gana Gueye, because Idrissa Gana Gueye looks at tackles, interceptions. I don't think Onana really focuses on that. He's more focused on ball carrying ability and all that. So in terms of him as a different option, when you still have Partey, Rice, and Jorginho, I would definitely take him. Now, the only other thing is the pricing, as you said, but we'll talk about that one. So, yeah, Premier League experience helps. I think he's 25 years of age, so age-wise as well, kind of fits our model, less 25 and young and all that. So, yeah, I think he would fit in terms of some games, part-time player here and there, not as the guy you're depending on to cover your defensive midfield position. No.
Yeah, definitely. Now, for me, with Onana, and I'm going to annoy many people on this channel, by the way, because I know people love Onana. I know, over people watching here, they love Onana.
Yeah.
I think Onana is a quality player, and if I am to do 5 signings every top team should sign, I would suggest him for a team like Tottenham, and I would suggest him for a team like Manchester United. At Arsenal, his talents have been taken on. When we talk about Emil Smith Pro on your channel today, it's the same thing. They are quality players, and there is a lot of quality in them, but their positions have either been occupied or you just can't find where they're going to play. So for me, with Onana, Declan Rice is playing in that position, but of course we know we have a Fabio Vieira there, and of course we know we have an Emil Smith Pro there, right? Unless we lose Emil Smith Pro and Fabio Vieira, and therefore we have to replace them with one more player, then maybe Ahmad Onana would actually have to come in. But at the moment, I wouldn't say that is a smart signing by Arsenal. Like if you have to keep one of Vieira and Declan Rice's durability, right, and Kai Havertz's ability to drop in that position, I wouldn't say that's a smart signing. I think I would only take him if it is 30 million. Like that at 22 years of age, one of the best young, central midfielders in the Premier League, below, in the second tier of the table, you actually take that opportunity. Like it's like David Raya being available last summer. That's what I would do. But 40 million and above, I don't see why Arsenal do that deal. I don't see why. I don't see why we splash the money. And this is my reason. When I've seen him, I've seen a very good central midfielder, a very good ball carrier, like you've said. But I have seen and I have noticed laziness, and maybe not with laziness, but with unwillingness for him to put in the work.
I've even had Everton fans saying that on their reactions when they are mad. So you're right.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at the other 2 options in their midfield, Idrissa Gana Gueye and James Garner, one of those, of course, Idrissa Gana Gueye is now very old, but maybe James Garner is the young one. Did he come from Chelsea?
I don't remember he came before, but I've watched his performances this season.
I think they got him from Chelsea. James Garner would be the one that I would say fits what Arsenal want. A young player, an understudy for Thomas Partey, high potential, and all that, and maybe in terms of pricing. So for me, Ahmad Onana is kind of wide off the mark what Arsenal need. But how much would you pay? Because for me, like I've said, 30 million or less, and not because it's not worth 40, 50, 60 million. I think Arsenal's need at the moment is not too pressing for us to go 31 million and above for Onana. How much would you pay?
How old is he? Is he 22 or something?
22, just 22. Like, yeah, I mean, you've got nothing to do on him about his age. He's just so young at the moment.
He kind of looks older than that, He looks like I've watched him for a few years now. I actually know he was that young a couple of days ago. How much did they pay for him? You said 50 million is too much. That's too much. I heard you say 50 million in terms of his value or whatever Everton wants for him. Now, another thing with Onana is that Everton, with FFP problems, they're kind of trying to sell players. So in terms of being easier deal to do, it would be easier to do. We've just talked about Bruno Guimaraes being complicated for a lot of reasons. I think Onana would be easier to do for a lot of reasons as well. Everton might want to sell him, like moving from Everton to Arsenal might not be it's a no-brainer pretty much. You'd want like a different kind of battle because they've been fighting relegation all these years. Maybe this time he has a different kind of challenge. On top of that, Everton wanting to sell, they might be forced to drop the price more, but they would have to drop the price to like a maximum of 35 million for me to take.
Yeah. For me, it's the same. 35 million or no deal, because I look at him as one of the players that come in and then just sit on the bench for a very long time, and then you eventually have to move him on, because you have the likes of Declan Rice and Odegaard, who actually occupy the positions where he would thrive, are immovable objects. Like literally, when they plant themselves in a position in a season, you just know, apart from any injury, fatigue, or burnout, you're not actually going to oust them. Now, the other player who is very similar in terms of profile, but very cheap at the moment, is Yusuf Fofana. Yusuf Fofana is at Monaco, French international, 25 years of age, really, really wanted by Arsenal, according to reports, that we have even looked at him for 2 years consecutively. Brings out your 180 pages very, very well. Now, Fofana has predominantly played as CM, but he predominantly, I wouldn't say predominantly, but he's got those DM genes very well. And according to SofaScore, his second position after central midfield is actually defensive midfield. So Arsenal are safe there. You have a defensive midfielder who can cut across as a central midfielder. And we know Mikel loves versatility. When you don't want to play Rice, maybe FA Cup, maybe Carabao Cup, you can play Jorginho alongside Fofana. He's a big engine. That is one thing. He is in his prime, unlike Onana, who is young, makes childish mistakes and all that. He's in his prime, which means that he's ready to come and maybe hit the ground running, right? In terms of the price, I know you will be intrigued, but in terms of the profile of the player, do you think going to the French League One and picking up a player like Fofana is a risk at the time when we want to close up that gap with Man City?
I mean, as I said, as long as Partey, Rice, and Jorginho are there, and these players are not going to play every single time, and they're going to, maybe play 20 games in the league and maybe start 8 of them, 12 of them from the bench, I don't really mind it, because it's not like he's a completely terrible player. No, there's qualities there. That's why there's been a lot of talk about him being linked to a lot of different teams. So as long as Partey is there, then fine. But if Partey was leaving and then you get Fofana, I'm not 100% sure. But now let me make something clear. I'm not sure because not 100% sure. Not because I've watched him every single day and I'm like, nah, this is not the guy. Yeah, I've not watched him games in detail. Maybe he does have some qualities that I've missed. But from what I'm hearing from fans who want him from even different clubs is that this guy's really good. This guy's really good. We can get him in our midfield. So in terms of him,
I think he reminds me of Sissoko,
the Newcastle one.
Sissoko, the Newcastle guy. Yeah.
Now,
like midfield dynamite, midfield power, midfield engine.
There was a time Sissoko was at Newcastle. It was impossible to get the ball from. It was like Dembele from Tottenham. Would you say Dembele of Tottenham would be the same, or Dembele has more qualities?
Dembele is technically gifted. He's like one of those players that are once in a while, but I think he's closer to Sissoko actually.
So for the qualities of Fofana, it's they're saying dribbling, concentration, and ball interception. Those are your main things. For me in my midfield, I mostly look at control, tackles, and also interceptions, because that is your job. Control the midfield, don't get exposed, don't lose the ball. When we're trying to keep the ball a bit, we're going to give the ball to you. Intercept whenever you're trying to. We are going to be consider goal. You can intercept the challenge without picking up too many yellow cards. You can time your tackles better. You can take away the pressure from the defenders. You can protect your defenders, and also give your two midfielders in front of you, license to go forward. I look at all of that. So if you're saying is like a player like a Sissoko is really good, as I said. If you're signing him to partner Partey or to come and help out Partey and Declan Rice, I would take him. I'd like to know what price you're saying about him. I'd like to know his price. But yeah, from what I've heard from people, there's definitely something good there. So because you don't really hear a lot of fans from a lot of different teams saying, "Oh, want this player, want this player." From it's a terrible player, and as you said, if he's like Sissoko, then I'm a little bit intrigued because Sissoko, there's a time you couldn't take the ball off him. That midfield, if powerhouse, if you say that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's a powerhouse. Now, for me, it's a deal that I would do. It's a deal that I would want Arsenal to do because at 25,
Hmm.
he's leaving Monaco. He would be going to Arsenal, which is a much bigger and much better club and project at the moment. He'll be looking to win, and I would consider him as kind of a Divock Origi, player around the squad. They're always there. Every team has this kind of players. They have some qualities, and they're always in and around the squad. The other thing is he's 25 in his prime. I
Mhm.
think you talked about the price. We're going to discuss the price, but he's 25 million euros rated, and Fabrizio says that there's a high possibility Monaco will ask for around 20 to 25 million euros, but that could be negotiated down to even 19 million. When you consider what Arsenal can do, especially when contracts of players are running down, and when players are sure they're leaving. The likes of Martin Odegaard, we know we've obliterated teams in negotiation. So I'll do it because Pate and Jorginho are not here for the next 3 years. The maximum I can give them is 2 years for them to leave the stage, and then we
I'd give
might
them one.
need.
I'd
You'll
give them
give them
only one.
one. You
Mm.
give them one. Okay, that's even. I think I was more generous. So
Mm.
because we are going to lose two high class quality midfielders, we might need to bring in players that learn the system from them. It would be a very, very good socialization, way to bring in players as their potential predecessors are still around. So you bring in a Yusuf Fofana, and then the next summer you go and sign um you know another player. Maybe
Mhm.
that summer you do is Zubimendi. By that time maybe he wants to come. Maybe maybe you've highlighted another talent. Maybe you've watched Joao Neves for quite some more time, or even Emmanuel Ugarte. So I would say good deal for me on the market right now. Low hanging fruit in his prime. I won't be surprised if I wake up in the morning and like Chelsea has signed Fofana because they're good at seeing such deals. But 25 million, or even less, I don't think it's gonna go above that. You think it's a deal that Arsenal should be crazy about?
25 million I would pay right now. I would even send the money myself and tell them that 25 million, let's get him. 25 million for those qualities that you've broken down. And I definitely agree in terms of letting a player learn the system and learn from the experienced players who play there. And I'm saying Jorginho and Partey 1 year, not because they're not good. They're very good players, but because Partey, especially if he has another injury in a ravaged season next season, is definitely not going to be here after that. And Jorginho is just extended for one more season. There's a chance he might extend again after that, but now
Mm.
you're going into the deeper the middle 30s, and you can't really keep a player for that long. You have to kind of move on. So in terms of 25 million for a player who's highly rated, I wouldn't really, because you asked something about France, I wouldn't really care about where he's coming from, because he's been good there. And I think Monaco had a very good season. Did they
Mm.
eventually finish second or third?
Yeah,
I don't
second.
know, second. So they had a good season, and midfield is very important. You can't just say it's because this player scored many goals or this goalkeeper was great. The midfield is a key position for a player team to finish second. So for 25 million, I would do it. Again, if Partey was leaving and Fofana was the one to come in as the main guy, I'd have doubts. But if it's coming to learn from Jorginho and also from Partey and play and stay fit and help us when Partey is not available a few games, then I would take him. 25 million is easier because right now it's looking like we're trying to balance it out in terms of positions. I would do it. And remember, my midfield is the priority for me, number one priority.
Mm.
So I don't think you can just say keep Pat and then not buy anyone else. No, we definitely have to get someone else. So if it means we can't splash the bank, you go for cheaper deals like that.
Yeah, surely. So Arsenal are looking at other alternatives in terms of midfield. That's what we're talking about. Now that Bruno Guimaraes is going to cost 100 million, and that will not be negotiated down. But also Thomas Partey staying means that Arsenal have the liberty to spend less on the midfield as we look to bolster other areas. Now, Martin Zubimendi, I just wanted to give you an update on that one. he's one of the players that have just reluctantly said they wouldn't want to join the Premier League at the moment. They'd love to stay in La Liga and stay where they are. I think he's a very loyal player at Real Sociedad. We literally don't see a lot of loyalty. We've seen the likes of Marco Reyes at Borussia Dortmund. But Zubimendi is a player that really loves to stay in La Liga and a player that loves to stay at La Real. So we might see him at Barca. We might see him at Real Madrid. His chances of signing for Arsenal this summer are very slim because he's got a release clause that Arsenal could trigger, but we just can't get around him. It's the second or third time that Arsenal have approached his camp and approached the player, and is still very reluctant to move. Now, Glenn is going to be talking us into Johan Bakayoko, one of the players that he likes very much. Absolutely did a job against Jakub Kivio when he played against them. Arsenal are looking for a winger this summer. We know that. And I mean, we have so many options. But Johan Bakayoko, Glenn, is a little bit different in terms of he's not among these high profile or Premier League proven wingers we are talking about, Olise, Marcus Rashford, Kudus. He's kind of low profile, and it feels very realistic because we are looking for someone to do a job that comprehends Saka. Maybe comes on when Saka is injured, comes on to relieve Saka, and maybe take on Luton in the Carabao Cup and rest Saka. Doable deal, in my opinion. But first, talk to me about Johan Bakayoko. The qualities you really like about him.
So, because you're telling me that we talked about dream signings, and I say that I want Bakayoko 1 week ago, and 1 week later, Arsenal wants him.
Sure.
Does that mean Ateta watches Cossy Arsenal podcast? Imagine that. If you are hi Ateta, we are big fans of you. Please go and get do the great transfers, please. Win us a trophy. We'd really love that. Absolutely love him. So, in terms of winger, I did say that is like my third priority after midfield, and also in terms of striker, he brings in a lot of qualities. We beat them 4-0 at home, but he's the player that stood out for me on that right side. You could clearly see like he was very good. He created some chances they missed, but he could tell he was very good. And even the away game that we played against them, the 1-1, he was very good again. And a lot of people are talking about backup for wing. I've not really had a lot of people saying get a replacement for Saka. That is crazy. Get a backup for winger. Get a backup for winger. Always people saying let's get someone to help out Saka. We can rest Saka. So that would be the ideal player. In terms of money, I don't know how much it costs to talk about that one later. But in terms of value and what it brings to the team, I think he has the capabilities of being a signing like Trossard. Not that expensive. Not too many people want him. But he comes and has an impact. I mean, more impact than people expected, because I don't think people expected Trossard to have this much of an impact. Double figures assists in 5 months the previous season, and then double figure goals this season. I don't think people expected that. So Bakayoko, I think, would have that kind of impact. And he would 100% help deputize for Saka. And that is a player that because as I said, taking off Saka and then bringing in Vera in that position, that's totally different. Vera doesn't have the pace to beat players and left, right side, all that. Nelson, it doesn't really have the quality to do that. Martinelli, Trossard on the right side, I don't really like that. I prefer them on the left side. So now you're looking at someone who's direct, the same as him. Left footer, same as him. Young, same as him. Players direct, same as him. Pace, the pace and the you can give him the ball and he can just go. Either through pass, you can just give him the ball to feet and he can just pick it up like that and dribble past a player without any worry. And we've seen Doku doing that a lot for Man City, and he has a big impact. Like when Doku comes in, you can all of a sudden tell the defenders talking to the coach, okay, what do we do here? Because not because he's the world's best player, just because of that pace. That pace can punish you. And if you can get in good positions, there's other things. If a player is not good at finishing, not good at crossing, you can polish that. Because someone like a Traore is very rapid, but the finishing touches, not the great. But again, for him, he's been playing for a long time. He's not a youngster, so maybe he didn't really get that part of his game developed. But for a player like a Bakayoko, he'll bring the pace, he'll bring the excitement, he'll bring the deputy that we need in terms of Saka. And if there's qualities that are not there after the pace, then Ateta can work on that and they can learn from each other with Saka. And that is a vital position. Saka we're playing too many times. And whenever I look at the bench, I don't see anyone who can play there. I prefer Fabio Vieira in the Odegaard position. I prefer Martinelli Trossard on the left side. And Nelson, even when he plays anyway, I kind of prefer him on the left side as well. So I'm looking at Saka and we're like, there's no one there. And he's missed games this season. Yes, we might have won those games, but we still try to do different things. Play Jesus on the right side. Let's try. I think Martinelli started on the right side against Everton last game. So we try to try different things because we don't really have anyone we can say we're going to go directly to this play. And I think Bakayoko would bring that. A lot of similarities to Saka. Saka's done it in England, so he has more like better aspects about his game and all that. He's learned from Arteta and he's learned just being in the Premier League for 4 or 5 years. I guess Bakayoko can also learn, but in terms of direct deputy, I would absolutely love him.
Now, he's just turned 21 in April this year. He's had very, very excellent numbers in his last 2 seasons, and I think that's why Arsenal have been looking at him, because a winger that can do the job, but also very, very productive. However, there is a possibility when you look at Trossard and Gabriel Martinelli's, complementarity on the left hand side. One is a little bit older and experienced, and the other is young, raw, and has a lot to learn. And I think if you're Gabriel Martinelli, you're lucky that you're learning from one of the best in that role in Leandro Trossard. Would you say there might be a problem having two almost 21-year-olds playing in the same position, one backing up the other, in terms of, because we look at it in Saka getting injured and Saka resting, but we should also consider Saka not having a good season and Johan Bakayoko having to do what Trossard has done for us, like going there and just delivering. You don't need to be prepared. You don't need to be given any presentations. The moment you're senior, the moment the first player ahead of you is not having a good season, you must be able to step up. So do you think a 21-year-old would take on the pressure of Saka, the star player at Arsenal, has not delivered, I've got to deliver?
That's a very good way of putting it, because your experience and then younger player experience, then younger player. I mean, because what I'm looking for, I'm not looking for someone to come in. There's a chance he might have a bad season in terms of Saka, but obviously I've not been looking at it like that. I've been looking at it like he's going to pick it up, he's not going to have a bad season. But in the scenario where he has a bad season, would I depend on Bakayoko to put that pressure on him to come and do that job? I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind it at all. I think he can do that job. It would be
20 GA?
I mean, he was able to get, I think, 14 goals and double figure assists as well, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, he got 12 goals and 9 assists. That was incredible last season, like really incredible.
That is in the league.
Yeah, that's just in the league.
I think in all competitions it was 14-14.
Yeah.
So those are very good numbers. Now, because what you're looking at on that right side, I'd be willing to gamble. Because of different reasons. One is that the fact that he's playing on that side with Odegaard and Ben White, I'd be able to trust those players to get him in the game. If a player's feeling pressure on that side, Odegaard is there, is going to help you out. Don't worry, all you have to do, Odegaard will probably help him out in that. Just make the run, I'll pass you the ball. Not too much pressure. If you cross the ball and it's a bad cross, no problem. Let's go again. I'd be able to. We can be able to work on that. Now, the thing is, when Saka goes off, I think it's very difficult to get that kind of pacey wing. I would be able to just sit on the bench and cover for Saka. I don't think there's too many older players would want to do that. For someone like a Bakayoko, I'm looking at it like this: he's a younger. Doesn't really have to play every single day right now. He can learn a few things from our wingers, and when he can play, he can play. He doesn't have to start every single game, and it wouldn't cause too much commotion in terms of the dressing room, and they can combine together well with Saka. Maybe even some games, finally Saka gets to rest and then Bakayoko starts in that position. If it doesn't work out, you can always bring back Saka in that position for the next game, or in the second half, it can always work out like that. But I'm looking at it like you're just going to come and help out Saka, take a bit of pressure away from him. I'm not asking you to get 16 goals and 20 assists like Saka would do. That is not what I'm asking for you. I'm just asking you to come and do the same thing Saka does in terms of pace, and just putting the defender under pressure. You have the pace to do it. You have the technique to do it. Just go there and do that. Because what I'm looking for is if Saka is destroying the left back and the full back, they can have someone else in the second half who can bring the pace in terms of that. And in terms of experience and all that, I'm going to bank on, the players he's playing with on that right side to help him out, and the management. Now, if he was playing on the left side, where we don't really have, as you said, we don't really have, certain players who always play. It's changing between Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Timber, Kivio. It's changing between Martinelli, Trossard, and all that. So if you had him on the left side, it would be a bit, worrisome, because he wouldn't know if Declan Rice is the number 8. Is it going to be Fabio Vieira today? What's the combination with all the? But on the right side, I feel like it's natural. I feel like whoever we get on that right side, even dare me say it, because even Anthony from Man United, I think he comes to us and plays with Odegaard and Ben White, it just becomes phenomenal right away. So I do hear where you're coming from in terms of being wide, in terms of experience, but I also don't think there's too many players in terms of that.
Obviously, the other thing that worries me is the importance of that right-hand side for Arsenal in the last 3 years. And when I hear that Arsenal have been, interested in Rafinha, and Arsenal have been interested in Mohamed Kudus, and we look at the profile of those players, one of them has ended up at Barcelona, and the other has ended up at West Ham, which makes them both now Premier League proven. It shows you how much Mikel Arteta really appreciates the right-hand side and how much he rates it. He was not bringing in Rafinha probably to actually start ahead of Saka, but just to have that enormous quality. So would you be contented to go into a Champions League game against Real Madrid, who have Vinicius Junior on one wing, Rodrigo on the other, and Kylian Mbappe, who can play on across that forward line, and Rodrigo across that forward line, and then 60 minutes since Saka doesn't have a good game, and you're like, let me throw on, Bakayoko?
I would, because I've seen him doing it before for PSV in the Europa League and in the league. He's done it. I mean, those are champions. I mean, the team that he played against, Dortmund, went all the way to the final, and I saw him having a good performance against a team like that. I saw him having good performances against an Arsenal 4 times, twice in the Europa League and twice in the Champions League. I've seen him performing against, whether they call it Europa League level teams, whatever, Sevilla in the Champions League, against Lens and all of those teams, and we've seen his goal return. Now, obviously, there's still improvements to make. Bring him in against a Real Madrid or a Bayern Munich, I would. The last 30 minutes, I would. Yes, you might not get the same from the same you'd get from like a Vinicius or a player like that. But if you go to that level, then you're probably looking for someone who's coming to replace Saka and take him out of the team. But for me, I'm just looking for someone to come and help out Saka. We need a backup wing. I don't feel like that is a priority completely. I know it's a very important position, but we're still getting the returns from that side, from Ben White, from Odegaard, from Saka. So I don't really feel like they need to be replaced. But yes, because of what I've seen from Bakayoko, doing it against Ajax, doing it against Arsenal, doing it against Dortmund, doing it against all those Champions League teams, I still bank on his pace and bank on his technique to help us get through those games. So yeah, I do like him. I would sign him.
Okay. Now, if you're watching this, Bakayoko Johan is a 21-year-old winger, left-footed, predominantly plays on the right-hand side. He's absolutely very quick, and he's got the flair. I want us to talk about his profile, because there is the challenge of wingers that have been successful elsewhere struggling in the Premier League. The Premier League, actually, wingers in the Premier League find a bigger problem as compared to players across other positions. Pepe came in with a very good track record. It failed. Anthony as well, struggled. We had a couple of, Sancho, who has had a fantastic last part of the campaign at Dortmund. Looks like he was meant to be at Dortmund. And then you've had players like, players from Ajax coming in at Tottenham. I think it was Bergwijn, could play out wide, could play as a striker. So you could even bank on him, that you could play him across the forward line. And again, it failed. So in terms of his profile, the way he's built, physicality, relentlessness, quality, technical ability, on a scale of 1 to 10, how does he fit into the Premier League?
Into the Premier League, there's always doubts for players who are coming from Netherlands and France and all that. And in terms of him being not too experienced, I'd still say he's a bit experienced, because he experienced the the Champions League and the Europa League and all those international competitions. He's won this, and he's had an incredible season where PSV have basically smashed up everyone. Now the Premier League is different. You might come and you might just get bullied by other players in the Premier League. How would he fit in the Premier League out of 10 right now? The pace always helps. It's not the best of the most important quality in everything in football, but it does help. The people who live on pace, and it really helps their teams. Like Traore, he just pace and he creates chances from that. In terms of him fitting and me doubting how it fit in the Premier League, I'd say 7 out of 10 fits in the Premier League. Now, the other thing is with signing young players like that. Another reason I want him, if it doesn't work out, he's 21 years of age. He'll be 23. There's a resale value, so you can always move him on. And he's not really coming in as a starter. He's only coming in as a backup for now and help out Saka on that side. So I'd say 7 out of 10 because of the history of players coming up from those countries, and also because of his age a bit. So that's why I'd give it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, there's a time, I think it was in 2022 or 2022, when we were diving into the economics of Arsenal, and we said we're no longer fans. Every Arsenal fan is now becoming an economic professor. We've got to talk about the price. We've got to talk about how much it's going to cost, and we've got to talk about whether it is worth signing a player that much. Now, his market value is 45 million euros. I have seen one of my favorite Arsenal content creators saying, "I wouldn't pay that. I wouldn't pay 45 for for Bakayoko." With young players at the moment, they're in high demand because of contract amortization processes where clubs feel safer to sign them on longer term contracts. So they're really in demand. You can get a player like Fofana for 25 million at 25, or a player like Partey for 45 million at at 28. But then you find yourself that you're going to pay around 100 million for a 22-year-old or 23-year-old because clubs know. Most of the clubs out there want a young player that's going to be there for 9 years and do the job for them for 9 years, and maybe save them from FFP and all that. Do you think Arsenal would have to pay above 30 million in terms of for him, or it's a deal it's one of those deals where you go out there to Dutch LDVZ, negotiate your way around it, and you can walk away with a 30 million deal?
I really do think in the next 3-4 years, people will be talking about him as one of the best wingers in the world.
Wow.
So PSV have to get something for him. And he's proven himself for at least 2 seasons. I usually don't like players who, it's only 1 season. Like a Pepe, it was 1 season. I probably wouldn't have bought Kvaratskhelia or someone like that last season after 1 season. You never know, But again, there's had a good good return and stuff, working in the Champions League and all that before. I've seen enough. So for Bakayoko, would I pay 30 million plus? Yes, I think it's worth that money. 14 goals, 14 assists in all competitions is not a joke. That means he knows where the goal is, and his game is not one dimensional. It's not all about the goals. He can also get the assists. And for wingers who get goals, the game has changed these days. Back in the day, the Giggs and the Beckhams and the Oyunberg and Pires used to score goals, but the work was really to get assists. Like someone like a Giggs is a good example. Like just get the assist, cross the ball. Beckham just cross the ball. Damien Duff at Chelsea just go across the ball. But these days the wingers, Salah and Mane were the absolutely incredible ones, like just scoring. Saka scoring. Martinelli had a 15+ goal season. So these days wingers, you need to score, and if he's going to bring goals and he's also going to bring assists, and the age is perfect, and he's played international football already, and he's already won something, he's already a winner at that kind of age, I think it's worth it. I would probably say around 40 to 45.
40 to 45 million euros. I mean, it's very interesting the way you rate him that much. I wouldn't pay that much for him. I still think that PSV wouldn't even charge that much. Honestly, they would start there, but they would end up getting something like 33 million euros plus a couple of add-ons, which would take the deal to around 38. And it's interesting to see what Arsenal really want to do with that position, especially in terms of the budget. Now, just a yes or no, do you think he's a much better player for Arsenal than Brahim Diaz?
That's tough. In terms of better player for Arsenal, I'd say no.
Yeah, I like Brahim Diaz, by the way. I really do. I've seen him at Milan last season. I gave him a lot of my time, and I was not disappointed. I kind of feel like with the Premier League, right? Players like Brahim Diaz, David Silva, Bernardo Silva, they can thrive. Like you could be small and you thrive. But at times I
Mhm.
fear for them. Like, he can come in and be bullied, especially if he plays out wide. If you're playing in midfield, you can have some protection. But if you're playing out wide, you've got or on the front line where you have a dedicated, full force just to stop you. You have to be like Kun Aguero, levels. But of course, if you have not seen what we've been talking about, if you're just joining us, we've been talking about the midfield situation. Arsenal are looking to sign a new midfielder, but Bruno Guimaraes, who has been number one priority, is going to cost 100 million, and Newcastle are not willing to negotiate down. That means that Arsenal have to look elsewhere, and we're looking at cheaper options in Yusuf Fofana and Amadou Onana. We have also discussed the fact that Zubimendi doesn't want to join Arsenal, so that could be a reason as to why Yusuf Fofana is rising quickly in the ranks. We've talked about we've talked about Bakayoko Johan, a winger that really, really, excites Glen. Here, he's already dreamed about him in the dream
Yeah.
signings, and he thinks he would pay 45 million euros for him, and he would come in and do a job that Saka does. Obviously, for him to say that, it means he rests him because Saka's been Arsenal Player of the Year on two occasions. The last player to do that was Thierry Daniel Henry. So, Bakayoko, if you're signing for Arsenal, you've got a job not to let down, Glenn. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been quite a very, very interesting, ride, Glenn. Sesko, before the Euros, we've talked about that on your channel. Just to a yes or no, you think it will happen before the Euros?
Yes.
All right. So we'll be back same time tomorrow on Glenn's channel at exactly midday, and of course on Cossy Arsenal podcast at exactly 8 p.m. Do subscribe, do hit the like button. We're going to keep you updated on all transfer stories and all Arsenal related content very, very soon. In around should be around 12 days. The fixes are coming out. We'll be able to review them and we'll be able to react to them as well. So there's a lot of Arsenal content coming your way. See you tomorrow.